This is the Stop Time Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hopkins, and I'm here to engage you in thought-provoking, motivational conversations around practicing the art of living in the moment. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm excited to dig deep and offer insights into embracing who we are and where we are at. It is such a great honor to be sitting down with my next guest. She is truly a pioneer, a visionary of our times. She is a 5-time Tony Award-winning director and choreographer, most known for Crazy for You, Contact, The Scottsboro Boys, and The Producers. Her work has been honored with Olivier Drama Desk, Outer Critics Circle, Lucille Lortel, and a record 6 Astaire Awards. She directed and choreographed The Producers, winner of a record-making 12 Tony Awards, including Best Direction and Best Choreography. She co-created, directed, and choreographed the Tony Award-winning musical Contact for Lincoln Center, which was honored with a 2003 Emmy Award for Live from Lincoln Center, and directed and choreographed the critically acclaimed musical Scottsboro Boys on Broadway and in the West End, where it was honored with the Evening Standard Award for Best Musical. She most recently directed, although maybe it's not even recent because, she moves fast, but last time I heard, she most recently directed and choreographed the new Broadway musical, New York, New York, and she directed the Broadway play POTUS, or Behind Every Great Dumbass Are 7 Women Trying to Keep Him Alive. She is the recipient of the George Abbott Award for Lifetime Achievement in the American Theater and an inductee of the Theater Hall of Fame in New York City. And I really could not be more thrilled to say that she is here with me, taking some time out on Stop Time. Everybody, this is Susan Stroman. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. I am so honored to be here. Thank you for thinking of me. Thank you.
Absolutely. I have so much to ask you, and I'm just so interested in checking in with you and where you're at in your trajectory, where you're at today, where you're at in your life. I spent the afternoon just reveling in your work, just watching. I mean, I know your work, but
Oh, thank you.
I love your website, by the way. It's pretty new,
yes,
right?
Yes, created during the pandemic. There you go.
It's awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, I'm not on social media, but I thought I should at least have a presence. So during the pandemic, I connected with a wonderful fellow named Tony Howell, and he helped me put that website together. And it's he did a beautiful job, and it makes me very happy that it's there. And young people connect to it, who are thinking of being a director and choreographer. So I love that they go on that site and read some of the history. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a real treasure trove. I mean, I could have, whiled away more hours doing it, to be honest, and I will go back. I mean, you spent what I love, and I wanted to ask you, I'm like, is there a book on the horizon? Because those little things where you are adding are wonderful.
Well, thank you. Yes, I think there is a book on the horizon, and I thought this would be a good way to start it if I wrote a little essay about each show. And so I have, 2 essays. I have the one for the website and then the one for the book that's a bit juicier, but so absolutely there's something on the way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's got to be. It's so exciting. And it's funny. I'm going to jump in just for a second. And I heard you say I should have a website. Talk to me about why. I mean, I know what you mean, but I'd love to hear why it was important for you to have a presence.
Well, it seems that if people want to find you now, they will only find you on social media. And but I just didn't want to be on Instagram or Facebook. But I thought if I at least had a presence through the website, then people could connect and find my agent or my lawyer or something like that. And because I wanted to make sure that that people understood who I was and where I was coming from and what the history of all the things I have done. But it will be right there to read rather than having to find it in some book, various books. It would be all right there for them. And it's worked out, especially for students. And so I think it was, in the end, a very good thing to do during the pandemic.
Yeah. What a project, right? It's quite an undertaking. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So I get the impression that you don't like to slow down very much. Is that a true statement?
Well, I listen, I love what I do. I feel quite lucky that I get to do what I love, but I love telling stories. I love working with actors. I love collaborating with composers and lyricists and writers. And, I where we're speaking now is in my office. And I would have to say that every week, 2 or 3 sets of writers come through here that we're constantly working on stories together. So it is very much a part of me, and I do love it, and I've always loved it ever since I was a little girl. Loved telling stories, and so yeah, slowing down. That I do not slow down. I do not. I just keep going. Because I think it's such a part of me that if I finish one project, I want to start something else the next day.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I thrive on it.
Yeah, I love it. So where do I begin? What do people not ask you? Like, you talk to a lot of people, right? And there's so much material. It's really interesting because on my show, I'm really interested in the human, right? But when I come to you, and part of it's my bias because I'm a dancer. So I'm going to be going, oh God, I want to ask. I just want to go there. I want to get in it with her, which I may allow myself to do. But on the other hand, I'm just curious to, like, what's something that you get asked all the time, and what's something that you kind of wish someone might actually take interest in?
Well, I think I believe people don't really know how it happens, how shows come to be, and for me, it comes in various forms. Either someone could hand you a screenplay that they want to make into a musical, or a novel that they want to make into a musical, or you want to collaborate with a particular group of people that you just sit there and toss ideas back and forth until you come up with something. And so the way things come to be is very different than normal situation. And the thing is, you work on these shows sometimes 5 years, 10 years before, for free, before they ever come to fruition. So this is something you just do because you love it, kind of like a potter. You just keep going and then hope somebody buys your wares at the end of it. Yeah. But it takes a long time to create some of these shows, and now it seems to take longer just because of the plight of the business. But another way, for example, the show Contact up at Lincoln Center, that ran for about 3.5 years up there. I happened to be in a club at 1 a.m. down on Hudson and Hubert, and every good New Yorker was wearing black, and then in walked a girl in a yellow dress, and I watched her step forward when she wanted to dance with a man, and then retreat back when she was done with him. And it happened all night, and I got obsessed watching her, and I thought, well, she's going to change some man's life tonight. And then about 2 weeks later, Andre Bishop at Lincoln Center called me and asked to meet with me. And he said, if you have an idea, we will help you develop it. And it was very much in my head about that vision I had seen. So I called my good friend John Weidman, and we started to talk about what that story might be about this girl in the yellow dress. And I took it back up to Andre Bishop, and Contact was born. So that really just came out of a vision of imagining what this girl's life was like.
And timing, right? I mean,
timing, yeah, absolutely. Whereas someone like Mel Brooks brought a screenplay of his wonderful award-winning producer's screenplay. And, everything is a little different about how it comes to be,
Yeah, and it's really interesting with you. And this, my sense is, there was a quote that I came across in our research where you said, I quote, you said, "It's interesting how one's career is like a line of stepping stones over a raging creek. Each stone is another experience that just makes you stronger for for when you reach the next stone, right?
Yes.
And it stood out to me because from an outsider's point of view, it seems like, and I'm guessing this probably isn't true because you lived it, but it seems like, you got your shot maybe somewhere, right? You can sort of discover that. And I love your timeline too, which is really fun to look at. And then it just kind of kept going stone to stone to stone. But I'm really curious about like what was on the riverbanks that maybe, you follow the path, but there's also, the riverbank. Are you the river? Talk to me.
Well, I think it's true that no matter what you have, what show you've created, whether that show was a financial success or not, I always feel that the show is an artistic success for you personally, and you take that show, whatever the next one is, whatever that next stone is, there's something you have learned from that show that you can apply to the next one, and you keep applying it as you go on. Things that work, things that didn't. I grew up in Delaware, but I was very lucky that I grew up in a house filled with music. My father was a wonderful piano player, and he also told big fish stories. To this day, I do not know if they are true. But so I had that combination of storytelling and music, and constant music in the house. So it was very much a part of me, that kind of celebration of music and celebration of storytelling. So it seemed quite natural that this would be where I was starting, on the bank of the river. And then now I'm going to step on this first stone and see if this works, and see if I can make it and keep going and keep balancing on these stones. And but I always take that, what happened as a child, that kind of music inside of me, and I still apply it. I know when Woody Allen came to me about doing Bullets Over Broadway and wanted to use a score that took place in the 1920s, I knew every song he could possibly talk about because of my father, because I grew up with knowing all those songs. I would be great on Name That Tune, And so it's interesting how that childhood has now just kept coming along with me with every single show.
Yeah, it really is. Do you believe in destiny? Like, do you think you were destined to be born to do what you're doing?
Well, in a way, destined, and again, I have to say lucky, because I do love it, and I know how fortunate I am. I do know how fortunate I am to love what I do.
Yeah.
But yes, I think the other thing I have to say is that when I was a kid, I would visualize music, and I still do to this day, no matter what's playing, whether it could be rock and roll, it could be an old standard, it could be classical, it could be Gershwin, it could be whatever. But I imagine people's dancing, costumes, everything in my head. So I visualize music, and always have. And so I think, had I not gone into the theater, I probably just would have gone crazy or something. But because when I do hear music, and I do imagine these setups and these scenes,
yeah,
whether they ultimately end up for anything or not, but it is there.
Do you? I'm curious, because there's different people have different processes, and I know that like some people are like to be very like they can see it all and they put it all together, and then they get in the rehearsal studio and then they just get it out, right? In what time it takes, but it's pretty clear what they want, with some changes obviously along the way. Or are you more of a sort of you kind of have an innate knowing, maybe an essence or a phrase, or just something that maybe you can't put into words yet, but a knowing, let's call it, and enough maybe. And again, I say a phrase because often I know in dance, sometimes we can just, you kind of get the tone, right? You kind of know where you're going and what you're trying to say. And then are you more of that person, and then go in and then you really work in the collaboration and then open out so that you can then grow it with your people? Or how do you work there?
So I have to say, before I go into a rehearsal room with actors, I do a lot of research on the time period, geographical area, everything, the composer, whatever. I do a lot of research, and that helps to inform me of what's to be, what kind of choreography, what kind of blocking, and also research on the particular characters, because characters dance and move differently altogether. Max Bialystock dances very differently from Leo Bloom. So all of that is brought to mind. But what I do is I really work a lot of it out before I go into rehearsal. But then I am inspired by actors, and I allow them to be very much a part of the creation. And it's almost by doing so much prep for it, you build a net, if you will. So everybody can fall into it if they want. And it's allowing the actors to create and feel spontaneous, but also protecting them at the same time. So it is a lot of homework, but then there's a lot of freedom when I get into the studio.
Yeah. And do you think that's changed as you went along? Because, as a young artist, right, as a young director, choreographer, I'm guessing, there's a different stake, right, at hand. There's a burden of proof. There's, you don't have the body of work right? So was your process different then? I'm just curious, was it any different?
No, I think I always had a feel for collaboration about what it takes. I mean, there's no art form like the musical theater, where there's a true collaboration with your designers, with your actors, with your composers. And I was very lucky to my very first professional job was with Candor Neb, and they really understand about collaboration, and they, just being around them was a great learning experience. And ultimately, they became very good friends. And the very first thing I did with them was at the Vineyard Theater. I choreographed a version of Flora the Red Menace for the Vineyard, and then was part of creating And the World Goes Round, the off-Broadway show. Then went on to create Steel Pier, and then ultimately the Scottsboro Boys, and then the most recently New York, New York. So that's a good example of wanting just to create with someone. Now, what could we do? When we were working on the Scottsboro Boys, it was mainly to be in a room together. That's how it started. But then the idea came up of, what if we did a true story? Something was based in reality. Because a lot of times in the musical theater, you're in a more fantastical world. And we did a lot of research on the American trials. And of course, the Scottsboro Boys is one of the most famous. So that's how that show came to be, really. And but I always feel I had a knack for collaboration. But then, of course, I was really taught by Candor Neb. And the other thing, of course, I started as a choreographer, but the directors that I worked with were Mike Ockrent and Trevor Nunn and Nick Heitner and Hal Prince. So, I was very lucky that those were the directors, and learned a great deal from them. By the time I was working with them, they were famous pros, and learned a great deal. So that by the time I crossed over to wear both hats, I felt like I had a great education from those.
Yeah. You have a degree in English too, don't you?
I do have a degree in English. Yes, a very good. Yes, I know, from the University of Delaware. Absolutely.
That's so interesting.
Well.
Yeah. So did you, was that important to you to have a degree before you went to New York, or?
Well, yes, it was. It was important to finish school. I loved school, and and I loved the English department too. I loved the literature. I loved, of course, once more, storytelling. So learning all about the classics, and and it's an English major can do a lot of things. To carry a satellite off of that to many different careers, but. Of course, I was able to apply it to the theater.
Yeah, no,
Perfect.
for sure. I mean, I think that's a wonderful basis, isn't it? To
It is. It
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's really rich. I'm curious to know, and as I'm sure everybody is, when we hear these stories, um, they sound. I guess I want to know where the gap, and if you want to call it a gap, maybe where the stones were wider apart, maybe where you were standing on the edge of the river, like so. I'm imagining you at school at university. Let's go back even a little bit further, like where did you transition into kind of knowing that you were going to follow this and eventually maybe go to New York? Was there kind of an aha moment? Did you do shows in your driveway when you were a kid? I did. I totally did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, can you remember the earliest moment of kind of, the stirring of, I want to do this. I want to create stuff.
Well, I did a lot of community theater in Delaware and then the Philadelphia area. So then that my teenage years and my college years, I was always doing shows. And then while it's kind of like in my last year of college, towards the end I had a friend that wanted to go to New York and audition for the Goodspeed Opera House.
Hmm.
So, and they said, why don't you come along? And so I went up and I auditioned for the Goodspeed Opera House. I wasn't even quite sure what I was doing because it was just so professional. There were like 400 dancers in the room, but they ended up picking two non-equity people, and I was one of them.
Oh,
And all
wow.
of a sudden, I, had to go back home and, tell my mother and father I had something called an equity card, and I had to sell my car and move to New York. Um, and that was it. I from there, I never stopped really. But I have to say, I always wanted, even though I came to New York as a song and dance gal, it was really, I always wanted to create. So, but I knew I couldn't just come to New York and say, I'm going to direct and I'm going to choreograph. I could never do that. But I was able to make a living singing and dancing, but it was always to cross over, always. And it was that taking that chance. I was doing a Broadway show that lasted a week on Broadway called Musical Chairs.
Hmm.
And I was with Scott Ellis, and we were outside lamenting about it, that he wanted to be a director. And, we both wanted to be on the other side of the table. And Scott had done the Rink with Kander Nebb, and I had done Chicago with Kander Nebb. And we thought, what if we knocked on their door and said, can we take Flora the Red Menace off Broadway and do a new version in the form of the WPA theater? And I tell young people too today that, you should always ask the question, because the worst thing that happened is someone says no. And we went and knocked on Kander Nebb's door thinking they were going to say no, but in fact, they said yes.
Wow.
And, we went down to the Vineyard Theater and we said, can we do this here? And they gave us the time and the space. And we did it. I think we made, $200 for the whole summer. And
Yeah,
but Scott Ellis and I never went back on stage again. That was it.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. Do you still believe that today? Do you think that that it's, I mean, is that a limiting belief? I know that is it's understood when we're coming up through the theater, that usually if you want to go there, you go through the show, you become an assistant, and there's kind of a protocol of doing that. Do you still believe that that's the case? Like if someone came to you and said, with no experience, and said, I'm really interested in directing and choreographing. Well, I don't know. Talk to me about, do you still think that
No,
exists?
the thing is, yeah, you can't wait for the phone to ring. You have to go out and create it yourself.
Yeah.
And that is indeed what I did,
Mm-hmm.
to create it yourself.
Yeah.
And if you believe that you can create, then you need to go make it happen.
Yeah.
And the other thing for today too, it's like our good friend Lin Manuel says, you need to be in the room where it happens. So if there is an opportunity for you to be in the room to observe,
Mm-hmm.
then you should do it. I know that my union has a wonderful observership where young people go and get to follow directors around and choreographers around, and a lot of them have gone on to greatness.
Mm-hmm.
So um, just really listen, it's a miracle a musical gets up. It is a miracle.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
all the different departments and the finances that go with it, and then your storytelling. And so having a young person be able to witness that,
Hmm.
because I think they, if they've grown up just doing, the occasional revival in their high school,
Yeah,
they'll see what it takes to put on a new show.
yeah, no, for sure. What's your favorite part? I mean, I can understand how once the show is moving forward and it's been green lighted and stuff and it's happening, that there's that whole thing. Um, but talk to me about the creative thing before that. Like when you don't know, and maybe you haven't had this in a while, but do you remember a time when you had an idea? I guess the Candor and Ebb one, the restaging of that was one. Did you have an idea that came to you much like the Contact, the girl in the yellow dress, but that you didn't really have anywhere to put it? You know what I mean? Or maybe there's still some in you. Maybe some of these things have come to you and you're thinking, oh, that's
Oh,
something.
oh, sure, all the time. I had two writers here today where we're creating a piece, and it's finding the space to put it in. But you go through a long process, because once you create it here in the office or with each other, then you have to get a reading
Yeah.
together to hear it read, which when then it changes again because you've heard it read by actors.
Yep.
And then you can do a workshop to put it up on his feet, and then you have to try to get investors and people interested in producers, and it is a long process. And then there's not that many theaters in New York. There's only a handful that you have to make sure that you're doing something that that particular theater owner would take to, which
Yeah.
is different from off Broadway and Broadway. And uh, there are theaters here that take chances, but it's only a handful that take chances.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite? I mean, you do such a diversity of things. And I can see you, I mean, I can see your signature through all of it for sure. But I'm just curious to know, is it the diversity of what you do that you like, or would you focus more on one area? What is it that thrills you about, excites you about doing stuff? Yeah.
No, it's doing different. In the end, it is about whatever that story is that interests me. But to be able to do something about that, the main focus is ballet, or the main focus is tap or jazz or whatever. To make it. It always is to service the story.
Yep.
I have a show with Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty called Little Dancer, and it's based on Degas' Little Dancer at
Hmm.
14, that famous sculpture.
Mm.
So within that, we do, classical ballet
Yep.
and, good old musical theater dance. But it's definitely a theater piece, but within that, it has the ballet. Whereas something like Bullets Over Broadway has tap dancing and, very rhythmic and
Hmm.
1920s dancing. And again, it really, where the show takes place or the story takes place. The
Yep.
Contact was swing dancing because it was always about making contact. And
Hmm.
the ultimate dance for that is swing dancing. And, even something like the Oklahoma I did with Trevor Nunn, the dancing was based on fighting for territory. So the dancing was very fight oriented. The women were pioneer women, and with mud on their skirts, which very different from the original.
Hmm.
And I loved it. And so it's I just love that I can listen. There's nothing greater to me than being in the back of a theater and seeing how a show that you've created affects an audience, whether it's something like Crazy for You, where you could see them put their arms around each other, or something like the producers where they're laughing hysterically, or something like the Scottsboro Boys, which hits them hard into conversation. Or it's just how the different, stories that I get to tell are diverse. But so I never go out seeking for that same kind of story. I always want a different kind of story all the time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm curious to know if, I mean, Crazy for You is just so powerfully strong. And I mean, all of it, right? Just your choreography is just so brilliant, but it's not all of who you are. And yet it really does capture a lot of who you are, right? Like really a lot. But I am curious though, because, the sort of non-aficionado might look at it and go, okay, she's the tap dancing one. She's the,
Oh.
right. Did you ever get pigeonholed into that? Because you're so not just the tap dancing one.
Well, I think probably at the beginning, Crazy Few
Yeah.
really was a huge, hit that came on strong here. And I think probably it had a lot of tap dancing in it, but it had a lot of humor in it too.
Yes,
And I
true.
think that's, very much a part of me, and how did that happen, not only in scene work, but in choreography and in music. And so I think perhaps at the beginning, yes, I think people did think that, but then, I would be able to go on to other pieces and create other types of work. And,
Oh yeah.
recently, I did the wonderful Coleman Domingo play Dot down at the Vineyard. And that was a very humorous play, but it was also very serious about Alzheimer's and explaining to the audience what that is about, but doing it with a very humorous family that lived in Philadelphia and how they're able to cope with it. And I loved Coleman's play, and I love being able to, be very much a part of that. Whereas something like POTUS, which I did on Broadway last year or 2 years ago, it was a play by Selena Fillinger that has 7 women, all very funny women, but it is about what happens when someone in power, some man in power, gets out of hand and does something wrong. And then if you are a woman underneath of him, you think, am I going to save him, or am I going to, what am I going to do? Am I going to be complacent and just get through this? So it really hit home, and as something that was very, very relevant, for now. So, that one was very political. I'm again feel very quite lucky to tell all these different types of stories.
Yeah, no, absolutely. How do you recharge?
Well, I recharge. Let's see. Well, I spend a lot of time in museums, and they are very inspiring. All of them. I mean, we're very lucky to live in a city that is filled with the best. But I do travel. I love to travel, and when I travel, I go to those museums and see the best art in the world that I can see. And I do read. I love reading novels, stories, and so that recharges me because it inspires me.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me. So on a daily basis, like when you wake up in the morning, are you kind of a routine oriented person, or does it depend on what the day is going to be?
Oh, it depends on what the day is going to be, because I do use every ounce of the day. So sometimes it is having breakfast with somebody or a collaborator before I go to auditions or rehearsal or meeting. Yeah. And then I do go out, I go out every night to see a show, some type of show.
Wow.
Or it could be the ballet, it could be the opera, it could be,
there's no lack of things to do or see.
Yeah.
So it's, I get this feeling. It's funny because you're so open and generous and brilliant. No, but it's interesting because I'm getting the sense that you have a very, very full and colorful and wonderful, diverse life and career. And I'm really interested in space, right? Just okay, we'll talk choreography. Just like in choreography, right? If you fill everything with steps and don't have any stop time or sort of any dynamics, then it makes everything feel like this. And even though you're saying to me, no, every day is filled, where's the nuance for you? I know it's there. I'm not implying that it's not there, but like, are there moments where you step outside of yourself and you go, this is me? I'm just so curious to know, like, when you're not, I don't want to say busy, because it's not really busy. I mean, it is busy, but you know what I'm saying, right? Because they're all things you're choosing to do.
Well, I like if you were asking me what, besides going to museums and conversation with friends, conversation with collaborators, I love conversation. I
Mm,
love having dinners with people and just talking.
yeah.
I love that art of conversation. I love
Yeah.
it. And to do it with different types of people. I love
Yeah.
it. And then, to be in New York City, to have at your fingertips the, Central Park, all the wonderful things and beauty of Central Park. And then
Yeah.
it's just sort of, all these new places that have popped up, like
Yes.
Hudson Yards and, like the most beautiful memorial in the world at the World Trade Center, the seaport, everything, there's so many beautiful places in New York City.
Yes, indeed.
And that fills me too.
Yeah.
I really use New York City.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. So much has shifted in our world in these past 3 years, right?
Yes.
I'm just curious to know what has shifted for you, or what maybe anything that you've learned about yourself during this time of massive change, right?
Yes. Well, I think it's all good though, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Just trying to be a part of stepping aside at sometimes and letting people go forward and being a part of reaching out where you might not have reached out before and working with people that you haven't worked with before, working with brand new teams and brand new associates and brand new assistants and all that is good. All that is wonderful. And I'm very strong in my union at the directors and choreographers union, so very much a part of change in that,
Yeah.
and being a leader in that change. So I think it's all fantastic, to be quite honest. Um, and the thing is, the material that we get to now relish in, the
Mm,
different plays, the different musicals, the different actors. It's all great. Everything about it is
very
great.
exciting. Yeah. Yeah. Did you learn anything about yourself? I know you had COVID, right? You got COVID, like,
Yeah.
oh my God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. We shut down on March 12th, and then I got COVID very bad on March 15th.
Oh man.
Yes, it was very bad, and it was scary because I wasn't vaccinated, certainly,
No,
and no one really knew what was going on, and
no.
and New York really got hit. Like we live in extremes here in New York City. We really got hit, so it was very scary. But I got through it, and in fact, I was on the phone with a doctor saying, let's try not to keep you out of the hospital, because
Mm,
a lot of times if you went in, you didn't come back out.
I
So
know. Yeah. Yeah.
so it all worked out in the end, but it was a scary time, the beginning of that pandemic.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah. I will say though, I couldn't boil an egg before the pandemic, and I learned how to cook during the pandemic. Out of necessity. But then I thought, oh, well, this is going to be very artful. I'm turning this into an art piece, So
Absolutely.
I would every night do something different and read
Yeah.
recipes and see what I could do. But besides the website, the cooking happened during the pandemic, which was a
That,
good thing.
that's
Yeah.
cool. Is it
Yeah, very
continuing?
cool.
Do you still?
Once New York opened up, forget about it. Yeah.
Now you don't have time to eat. So
Yeah, now restaurants and ordering, ordering in.
you're so funny. So you have so many strengths. What would you say is your Achilles heel?
Oh my gosh. Never having enough time thinking, I don't know, just, yeah, well, I feel I want to do so much all the time. And I think, I get depressed if I run out of time or can't accomplish something in that amount of time. So I
Mm,
think it's a silly thing to have, but it does. I just think the days I just wish there were more hours in the day for me.
mm.
Yeah.
If there were, what would you add more, or would you just have more time to do the things that you're doing?
Yeah, I had more time to do the things I'm doing for sure. Yeah.
So interesting. What would you What would you say is your definition, or do you have one, of living in the moment?
Oh, definitely being present. I mean, I think as a director too, you have to be very present in dealing with your actors and listen, some actors are very quick to pick things up, some are not.
Mm.
You have to recognize right away what everyone's process is and being present for them and being there for them. So I feel like I really make a conscious choice to be present in everything and listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the other thing for a director, really listening to people is important. But that goes back to that, dinners with lots of people talking and chatting and conversation is very much a part of listening. But yeah, being present is really, really important. And being there for people is very important.
What would you say is the hardest thing you've ever done?
Oh, the hardest the hardest show that I ever did was a show called Thou Shalt Not that I created with David Thompson and Harry Connick, but we were in tech and the towers fell, and
Mm.
it was a very difficult time. The stagehands wanted to go down to the World Trade Center, and people were very afraid that it wasn't going to stop,
Yeah.
and it was just a terrible time. And to try to rally people together, to try to rally actors, to try to rally
Mm.
crew to keep going was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And the show itself was not a jolly show. It didn't have any redeeming characters. So to do a dark story about murder and corruption
Yeah.
during that time was very difficult. It was on a limited run because it was under Lincoln Center's umbrella, and it ran its limited run. But it was a very, very hard time for all of us, and because so much sadness,
Yeah.
so much sadness. And New York City at that time, usually when you're grieving, you can go to someone to help you with it, but everyone was grieving.
Yeah.
Everyone in New York was grieving. So it was a relentless feeling of grief. So to, put on a show, it was very hard, but, we had to remember that, what had happened that day. They wanted to break our spirit. They really wanted to break our spirit and take us down, and to keep going, of whatever you do or whatever your passion is, to keep going, is to spit in their eye, so having to dig that up for everybody was very hard.
Yeah, no kidding, right? What would you say is the easiest thing you've ever done?
The easiest thing,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
It's funny how
Everything,
those are harder, right?
yeah, you don't remember the easy one.
No, you don't. And it's so interesting. Yeah. And, it could be even an easy decision. Maybe that's easier. Maybe it's the easiest decision you've ever made. I don't know.
Well, I guess it was to knock on Kandronev's door so long ago,
Mm.
and decide to take that chance. And then, that was it. My career was cemented.
Yeah, you obviously grew up, probably, I know you did, with the knock, 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 gotta dance, right?
Yeah,
Slam. Good, good,
yeah,
good. So you're like,
absolutely.
that's how you do it, right?
Still doing it, actually. I'm still doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just wrote a letter to a producer a few minutes ago saying, "Hey, I got a show. Can I come and pitch this for you?"
Good for
So
you.
I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it.
That's amazing. What big audacious goal or dream do you have, maybe, that you haven't put out in the universe yet? And maybe it's not creative. I mean, maybe it is, but maybe it's even outside of that world. I'm just curious. Is there something that maybe you've thought about that?
Well, I do love to travel, so there are many places I want to go, and I try to put that out there. I do, I think traveling and being a part of other cultures only makes you smarter and stronger, and
Yeah.
and it really does inform your work. So I think traveling is a dream. Just keep going to different places, and as far as creating, I I I do love the theater and ballet and opera, but I think it's still more of that, more of the live arts,
Mm.
more so than film and
Hmm.
television. I have some ideas for things to possibly produce film wise and television wise, but as far as directing and choreographing, I want to do that live.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed reading your little blurb about working on You've Got Mail, right? And how
Oh
they
yeah.
cut all your dance out.
I know, I know. That was amazing. I had, they ended up cutting the character. The total character was gone, but Nora Ephron gave me a wonderful disc of all the dances, and they, whatever they did, a focus group. They only wanted to see Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. They didn't want to hear from another secondary character or her boyfriend, and that's what I was choreographing, all of that. So but it was a great experience,
Yeah.
and a definite showbiz story. Whereas all the choreography I did in the movie Center Stage has become like, they're even doing like a Rocky Horror show of that movie of
Oh,
Center
really?
Stage, where they have young dancers, in a theater, calling out the lines from Center
Oh, wow.
Stage.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's all the others, a spectrum of choreography on film that's lasted through many generations. That movie.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's fun. What do you know will stay true about you no matter what happens?
Well, I feel like I am loyal,
Mm.
to people, and people underrate kindness, and I think kindness is a big deal in our business, and I think how it's very important to be kind, and that you should skew that way no matter what happens.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big part of me that I would love to teach other people, because I think people don't think that's important sometimes.
Yeah, or they forget.
Or they forget. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I guess it's, I think someone probably who loved to laugh,
Mm.
and to, loved to dance, and loved joy, and um, wanted to impart joy on others, and doing that through the theater and storytelling. So I think, that's very much a part of me,
Mm.
trying to live in a joyous place.
Yeah. Well, you exude it, definitely. Hey, do you dance in your living room? And where's your favorite place to sort of fool around and dance?
Yeah, I have a space over here that I work out, and mostly work out, but
Yeah, yeah.
I do dance over there. But now I'm at an age where working out is the big deal. You got to keep working out, or you won't be able to open that pickle jar, So, so I do work out. I work out twice a week with weights, and but no, I still dance, of course, especially when I'm trying to create something. And also, if I have to clean, if I'll put on
Mhm.
some wonderful music and dance and clean at the same time. Much better to dance as you clean. Just
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. All right. Just a couple more things. I could speak with you all evening, but I do want to be respectful of your time. Oh, can you finish this phrase? Most people think Susan Stroman is, but the truth is.
Oh, I can't, because I don't know what people think. I don't know. I
That's
can't
true.
answer that one.
So no one ever gets anything wrong about you?
Um, well, I think, as a woman, people get a lot of things wrong about you. I think, uh, sure, moving up the ladder here as a woman is, people get a lot of things wrong about you, thinking that you can't do something because you're a woman. I started in a very male dominated field.
Yep.
Really been in like the last 15 years that all of a sudden women have appeared, and it's been a long time coming. But I think people got a lot of wrong about me, thinking as a woman I couldn't do something. But I'm not alone in that. I mean, every woman went through that, and I think women are criticized more than men in any field, certainly politics,
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
get criticized more. So it is the plight of women that people take a long time to realize that you can do anything.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time.
What stands out to me in sort of that context that's amazing in your life is how Mel Brooks knew that you could direct, right? And just said, no, come and direct. And it's interesting because he's a lot older, right? So he comes from a very old school thinking, but he clearly does not have that thinking. I mean, how fortunate you were to have him to see you.
Yeah, and Mel had seen some of my work before, because he loves the musical. When you think about all his movies, he takes a nod to the musical theater in every movie he's ever done.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, I mean, he was, I tell you, respectful at every move with me. It was really amazing. He's an extraordinary person, an extraordinary human being.
Yeah. No, clearly. And talk about, people that you think about that just make you smile, right?
Yeah.
Just
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a force. All right. Let me so we're gonna do just a little, I'm gonna say what makes you, and I'm gonna say a word, and then you can just say whatever comes to mind. It doesn't have to be fast. We call it rapid fire, but it really doesn't need to be. So are you game?
All right.
Like, all right. What makes you hungry?
Oh, everything. I mean, I love to eat, but what makes me hungry is the smell of breakfast, like eggs and bacon, and I love breakfast, so that makes me hungry. If you're talking about food, yeah.
What makes you sad?
Oh, I would injustice. Watching the news in the morning. Any kind of injustice or bullying or anything. Someone doing something wrong to somebody else. That makes me very, very sad.
Yeah. What inspires you?
Art inspires me, and all sorts of art, whether it's impressionists or modern art. I'm very inspired by art.
Sidebar, maybe you have art on your walls somewhere else, but I don't see any art on your walls.
Well, it's interesting because this is my office, and I do have a beautiful light over there by an artist named Leo Villarreal, which is beautiful. But there are no, and in a Rob Wynn piece here, but I don't have any show posters or anything. It's a very clear, clean space, and so when I work down here in the office and have meetings down here, there's, you're not staring at some show poster and thinking, what happened there? What went wrong? While you're trying to create something new. So it's a very, very clean space.
Yeah, that's cool. Blank slate, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. What frustrates you?
I suppose other folks not doing their job around you. Some people, it's frustrating if I don't think they're going beyond the call of duty, really. I'm in this business because I have a passion for it, and I kind of want everybody else to have the same passion.
Fair enough. Yeah. What makes you laugh?
Yeah. Everybody makes me laugh. Mel Brooks makes me laugh. Larry David, Woody Allen, Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick, Brooke Sashmanskas. I mean, just to have so many people around me that make me laugh. And I do love to laugh. I do love to laugh.
Yeah.
So, I'm working on a new musical now called Smash, and the book writers are Rick Ellis and Bob Martin, and they are funny. And the book is funny. So right now, every time they call me, I just say hello and we start laughing because it's funny. So a lot of things makes me laugh. I'm just laughing all the time.
That's great. That's amazing. What makes you angry?
Well, I think maybe if you've trusted someone or depended on someone's truthfulness or honesty, and you realize that you've been duped in some way, that makes me angry.
Mm,
That's sad, you know.
yeah.
But that kind of oh, disappointment in someone, that
Yeah.
you thought was a friend or was a colleague or was telling you the truth about something.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm curious to know, do you get angry at yourself for not having seen that? Or you just, you know what I mean? Like sometimes we place a lot of faith in people,
Yeah.
slash
Oh, sure.
expectations.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah, sure. Because that you didn't see it coming. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you get angry at yourself.
Yeah. Right. Then you're like, what the heck? Yeah. So interesting. Finally, what makes you grateful?
Oh, I am grateful. I have to say this past Thanksgiving, I was grateful for many things, but I am very grateful for my friends and my family. And I am grateful to all my collaborators, and I am grateful for art and grateful for music and grateful for dance. And I am grateful. I feel it every day.
Yeah.
I do feel it every day. And I think about it a lot. I do think
Mm,
about it a lot.
I love that. And if grateful were a dance, does it present itself in different tempos at different times, would you say?
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yes, because part of what I do also is when I choreograph is work with the arranger and manipulate the time signature,
Mhm.
elicit an emotion, and so that kind of just being able to dance joy. I'm very grateful for that and to elicit joy. And again, I was very lucky to remount Crazy Few recently in London.
Mhm.
There's a dance there called Shall We Dance, and it's just two people and they have to be very in sync. And but at the end, when they hit that button and that audience applauds, it's so thrilling for me, and I'm very grateful about it, that it exists and I can make an audience that happy.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm so curious. It just came to me as a last minute question. When you came to New York, did you train with anyone in particular, or were you already trained and you came and you just started learning on the job in terms of really focusing your craft?
Yes, well, I trained in Delaware with James Jameson, and but when I came to New York, I studied with Luigi. I
Oh, you
was a
did.
Luigi
Cool.
gal, yeah,
Yeah.
Luigi and Henry Latang. Yeah,
Oh my God. Okay, that makes sense now. I know
yeah,
Henry, or I knew Henry and worked with him, and Phil Black was my guy.
yeah.
But
Phil Black,
but
yeah,
yeah,
also, yeah. But those were my two main
but that
dancers.
makes sense. The Henry Latang thing especially makes sense
Yeah,
because when I see your tapping and I hear you talk about Dave Brubeck and being in the pocket and working with the ballet dancers and all those things. I mean, I have a very strong rhythm tap background myself, and so I was so curious. I was like, I wonder where that's coming
yeah,
from. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Do you read music?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I took piano and guitar and all of it when I was younger. I mean, I didn't keep it up. I didn't keep it up.
but you learned it. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
so it's like you speak the language, which is fantastic. That's amazing. Very cool. What are the top three things that have happened so far today?
That happened today.
Yeah,
Uh, yes, I had breakfast with a movie star. I can't say who, but it was breakfast with a movie star
that's
this morning.
nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I had auditions for Smash, and we got some beautiful people for Smash.
Great.
And then I worked with two new writers on a new project right before I clicked on to you. So it was a full day of wonderfulness.
And what's something that you're looking forward to, both today for the rest of your day, and I know it's evening for you, and then also, meta, like in big, big, big term, what are you looking forward to?
I think I'm looking forward to more of the same, really, that I, again, to say it's that I love what I do and I just want to go forward doing it. and meeting other people, meeting new people to collaborate with. And I do look forward to that.
Yeah. Just seeing what unfolds, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. Susan, I so appreciate you spending the time with me today.
It was fun. It was fun. You had great questions. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No, listen, it's been a real pleasure. I've been speaking today with Susan Stroman. I'm Lisa Hopkins. Thanks so much for listening. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. And remember to live in the moment. In music, stop time is that beautiful moment where the band is suspended in rhythmic unison, supporting the soloist to express their individuality. In the moment, I encourage you to take that time and create your own rhythm. Until next time, I'm Lisa Hopkins. Thanks for listening.